Okay, everyone, this is Pink Cloud, round Table-6. In this whole thing, disastrous and everything here. Okay, so I'm here with Hannah and Jax, or Jax Hannah, if you like. But I'm here with them, reporting from my car. But this is another Pink Cloud round table for you all. So, introductions, request of speeches or subjects.
Let's talk about social awkwardness, not being able to speak to record it.
Okay, well, let's talk about how social awkwardness is represented in the media and how annoyed or not annoyed and how we know or do not know about them.
Okay, well, that's a lot in one. Can we start with one part of it?
Okay, well, recently I asked Hannah I told her I was watching Freaks and Geeks because it was recommended to me by one of my students. And he's like, why haven't you seen this? And I'm like, I just haven't.
Yeah.
And I've seen like about almost 3 episodes. The episodes are really long. And I asked Hannah what she thought. She's like, it's okay. You can watch something else. And then particularly, I was asking her about social awkwardness and how it was represented in there. And we were talking about how stock awkwardness it was. And then we were talking about John Green and how I normally don't read YA characters, but he's really good.
Okay, do I do something?
Okay, YA characters?
Young adult.
Young adult, okay. I see what you mean.
Well, what do you think about... Oh, so you haven't seen Freaking Geeks?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, what do you think about Freaking Geeks and why didn't you like it?
I thought it was kind of based on cliches, so it's kind of conforming to the idea that these are things that you should be awkward about, or that would normally make you awkward.
Yeah. It kind of didn't move into new territory.
Yeah, they should show somebody who's really, like, outside the social...
Yeah.
Like, those are, like, popular awkward people, maybe.
Popular awkward people, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there, because that's what it kind of does. It kind of stabilizes a kind of way of... It almost makes it... I think awkwardness has come to a point where people say, this is something you should be awkward about, in a way where it's more like, it's okay. But when you're not, maybe it makes it kind of strange. Like, whoa, why is that person not awkward about that? Like me, the Death King. You know me out there. Oh, sorry. It's a character I made up in a poem series, Death King, so...
Okay.
It's a part of me, so... I don't know. Anyway.
I have a door tag.
She's trying to get out.
Well, you can't without me opening it, so...
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
But I think some people embrace awkwardness. Like, they like being awkward sometimes. Like,
they embrace their own awkwardness or someone else's?
Well, like Miranda July, I think she turned her awkwardness into quirkiness into art.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe like a reverse. Is there a certain order?
Or maybe to her it's just art to begin with. There was no transition.
Or she's not even aware of it?
Yes.
Okay. That's solved.
Solved.
Solved. Okay, I have a quote. What is deafening silence and when does it stop? Or when does it start?
Ooh.
Okay, let's first define silence.
Oh, can I talk about this?
Yes.
Okay, because last night, because I got in like late last night, and then I realized that I was thinking that silence amplifies little sounds, but then I realized it doesn't amplify the little sounds. It's just the contrast. But do they become louder in silence, or is it just the lack of other sounds happening?
The lack of other sounds happening.
Okay. But then is that louder than in your ear?
So are you saying that silence is a soundboard for things that is already happening but was just without platform during the day?
No.
Okay. Well, we have an answer there.
Well, how do you define silence?
Everything. As strange as that may sound.
Would you say...
I think silence is what I've been doing for the past year and a half. It almost feels like that because now I've kind of expressed in every single kind of way I could to a lot of different people through my life. And
okay, so are you associating silence with initiation? Because that's what you've been lacking or not doing in the past year. Okay, so you're saying that silence can be done through, like, body language and the drawback of a certain routine.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
What do you mean?
Because I've been...
Let's say I go for a year without contacting you.
Mm-hmm.
Or without initiating contact. I might or might not respond if you talk to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to him, he's kind of defining that as a silence.
Okay, but if I talk to you, is there a silence then?
Not necessarily. And with me, no, I don't.
Hey, this reminds me, silence has two ends?
Silence has two ends. It has one end.
Or does a phone line have two ends?
Oh, two ends, yeah.
Does silence have two endings?
Not necessarily. Doesn't need to. I don't think it does because sometimes, like, I guess the simplest way that I look at it, or at least one of the ways I've looked at it because of everything that happened with the last year with Catherine and Christina, that stuff, I didn't necessarily need to shut up to make like a reaction. And I think that's important too, to what silence can do.
Okay. What I've also realized in my clarity is that there is a lot of silence in chatter. And the difference between, like, who I associate myself with now versus when I was in school is that I don't associate with anyone. Like, contacts are, like, not spontaneous or by association. It's more like I seek for contact, right?
Yeah.
So, but when I'm not seeking for contact, I feel like my mind is loud.
Yeah.
But sometimes my mind is shut down when people are constantly chatter, so I find silence in them.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like an emptiness, but I feel like they're talking, but it's just so silent.
Yeah.
But it's like this frustrating silence where it makes you feel like the whole wanting out thing that I was telling you about earlier.
Is there a silence in the car right now? And what space is it occupying?
It's been occupying me for a while.
Well, what are we not saying? Like, are there things that we're not saying? Is that silence or is that noise?
Well, there's always things that we're not saying.
Okay, so
Maybe.
that...
I think it's both. Well, I think in a way it can be both because, like, I can't be so spontaneous to say everything even though I wanted to right now.
Yeah. So even if you don't
there's only
have
so
a
much.
filter, there is a filter.
Okay. And
I think because I'm a big listener. So...
Do you think you're a listener?
Yeah, I like being a listener.
Sometimes I feel like I'm put in the position as a listener.
What do you mean?
Like certain interactions I have, somehow I just end up being a listener. Or maybe I put myself in that corner. I don't know. Sometimes I want to leave.
What role are you occupying right now? Are you a listener or a talker right now?
I think I'm talking right now.
What about right now?
Well, I think an important thing to bring up about that, like what you were saying about contacting certain people and not, like Facebook, kind of like all that social network stuff is kind of based on that, where you get to choose who you want to talk to. It's kind of like that's how it really is shown to you. You have that list, you have the names of people everywhere, and you could choose whoever you want. And you choose it on your own time and ability or whatever.
I think Facebook can be kind of aggressive, though, because, like, it'll have the friend suggestions on the side. So even if you don't want
And it will suggest friends who unfriend you.
Yes, so then you always remain kind of aware of them, and then they pop up out of nowhere sometimes and remind you, hey, I'm not talking to this person.
That's true. But, I don't know. I don't really see an aggressiveness in it because... if I'm not talking to anyone at this point, or initiating, then it doesn't feel like that. And I've kind of done it both ways, where I've contacted everybody on Facebook, too, so...
Can we talk about the texture of silence?
Texture. The feeling?
Yeah. Or does it have a color?
Dang. It could. I'm wondering what color it is. I've only been feeling it.
So when we're driving, when I was driving you home twice, like... in Irvine, what I realized, you told me, well, you figured out that I like symmetrical stuff that's manicured.
But that's moving.
That's moving. But I also realized what I like is that the silence is not loud.
When things are symmetrical?
No. In the movement. When I'm standing still, the silence feels loud. But when I'm moving and moving smoothly, the silence is like, there's a calming silence to it.
So it kind of swarms when you're standing still, and then it's like whooshing when you're moving?
It's not even whooshing though.
It's just
It's just nice.
okay. But are you hearing something?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah.
That makes sense. I could kind of see where that goes because it's like there's a constant integration with what you're doing and what you're saying, I think. Even if we don't want it to be. Here I am speaking.
Well, what's your texture of silence?
Texture of silence.
And when does the texture vary?
Usually, well, I think of like a whistle, like so
Okay.
stainless steel. Probably because my ear whistles. So,
Okay.
but that's just like by association. But then I think it varies. I think it's. I don't know. I really don't know. Like I don't pay attention to silence that much.
I do. And I think I did mostly with what happened with Christina. I know I'm going back to this, but an important point was when you have to be quiet and listen to see. I think that's what I was doing at the end, where I was just trying to see if this friendship can continue, and I saw that it didn't. But I think an important point is when you feel the texture of, because I was feeling like I get like stomach pressure a lot when
Okay.
something really is going bad. So,
Oh yeah.
and I feel like stucco walls sometimes.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So that's how I would kind of see silence too. That silence is, well, I don't know exactly what to describe in it, but
Okay, so then, but going back to that, like stucco walls, if you just like put your finger on a stucco wall, like you wouldn't feel the texture. You would have to move it.
Yeah.
Your hand. So where's the movement? We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
So texture depends on movement.
that's
then.
true.
Right. Because remember we did that thing where like if we went like this versus going like this. It's
And
just,
then you go like that.
and then we're 4 again. No, but what I was trying, because when you say you say I use the word flaccid a lot, but you use the word sterile a lot, and every time you use it, I think of that metal tray, but not necessarily in a hospital setting, just that metal tray by itself
Right.
with nothing on it.
Yeah.
And then when you said stucco, some silence when I want to leave, like when I want out of being a listener or just being there somewhere,
Yeah.
I feel like it's like this flaking.
Yeah.
But it's like a never, and like you're just kind of like, at first it's just like, oh, stuff is flaking.
Yeah.
It's flaking.
Right.
And then the more and more you want out, you're like crawling out of the silence
Yeah.
while someone's chattering.
Yeah.
But there's no center.
Yeah.
Like there's no solid point. It's a continuous flaking that makes you really anxious. Makes me really anxious.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I think that's sometimes, that's when I feel stuck
Yeah.
as a listener.
That's
because I
true.
think
There's only so much you can listen for
Right.
and listen into.
Right. And then also, it's like when you listen so much, you realize that the other person is trying to silence you by their chatter.
Yeah.
And that's when the silence is deafening.
Okay.
Okay.
So, there's your answer.
Well, what do you want to talk about, Marshy?
I don't know. I got so much.
Well, out of all the things I sent you, what comes to mind?
Assumptions.
Assumptions. Okay. Hey, we were talking about that. Remember? We were defining the difference between assuming, predicting,
And
and guessing.
Did you have any of my notes?
I do.
Yeah.
But let's quickly define assuming, predicting, and guessing.
Assuming. Well, assuming, I feel like, is trying to dictate a personal view at
Right.
times. And I think that's what I pointed out in the email about the quote. That sometimes an assumption, especially if you don't walk away from it, can continuously come back to you. Like, I'm going to assume about this. And then if you keep on trying to get it right, you keep on going back for it again and again and again. A good example is my grandma, Mamina, constantly, I would say using shows like Maury, Jerry Springer, you probably heard of these, and so on and so forth. And I think sometimes you could dictate the presence of a certain personality type and constrain it to almost everybody. So like saying all women are like that, or all men are like that, and that's it.
Hey, that's kind of exactly what I said, but in different words.
Yeah.
I said to assume is to stir past, as in past knowledge, and
Yeah.
like already, like knowledge stored in a well,
Right.
with present and personal perception.
Yeah.
And then
Perceptions. There we go.
and then oh, we had a whole thing about that.
Yeah.
And then to guess is to be without info and the least conviction out of all three. And to predict feels like it has the most conviction, but with premature conviction. And then she said, what did you say?
What did I say? Do you have it right there? I don't remember what I said.
I don't remember.
I said, then is there a difference between an honest guess and an educated guess and a wild guess? So if guessing is only, let's see, to guess is to be without info and to be with the least conviction. So then how are there different like degrees of guessing, I guess is what I was asking.
Are there different degrees of guesses? And I said sometimes it's just the adjectives.
Yeah, I think there is. It feels like, even if it can be very little difference, but maybe it's the intention of the guess too. Like where is it coming from? Like if it could be a wild guess, then it may not be so, I guess.
What you guessed.
I just guessed.
Yeah. What kind of guess was that?
Yeah, that
Wild,
was
educated, or honest?
probably an honest one.
Okay, I really liked what she asked about premature. Hannah asked me, can you really speak about the future without being premature?
That's pretty good.
Well, that is a good one.
And when you are so sure of the future, what does that make you in return?
Nothing.
You're sure of the future, what does that make you?
Yeah.
Naive?
Naive?
Not naive. No.
Sad. Sorry.
So, if we're talking about
'Cause if you're so
mature
yeah.
and premature,
Sorry.
are we going towards stability now?
It depends on some mature people. Yeah, I guess so. Like, but stability in what way? Like in your confidence in yourself?
Sure.
No, go ahead.
I just said sure.
I don't know where I'm going.
Okay. We hit a
Well,
wall.
It's okay. The confidence is probably there. Because I feel like maybe that's the thing too with what were we?
With guessing. So if you're confident in your guess,
Right.
you're making an assumption. No, are you making an assumption or a prediction? A prediction, probably.
Could be, but I don't know if confidence really has to do with it, because it can come from any direction. It doesn't necessarily have to do with what you're acting with.
So is a prediction always a guess? And is assumption always a guess?
Not really. It doesn't.
Assumption?
You'd have to wait for the prediction, I guess.
Is everything we do a guess?
Well, I feel like a guess is unbiased, but an assumption is biased.
Yeah, assumption
But isn't
is.
everything?
Or it's like a larger scale of bias?
Which one?
A guess would be a larger scale of bias?
Yeah. And then the assumption would be biased towards your own versus the object or person that you're
Right.
assuming things about.
Well, of course, because your psychology works differently with something closer. Like when Mamina says, "Oh, family blood," I said, "Well, what are other people made of? Play-Doh?"
Like,
You know, because it's like blood is everywhere, so
right.
it feels like there's a frantic.
Maybe it's just not your blood.
Yeah.
Other
Well, I mean, it is because.
Other people's blood is flaccid.
But then I guess but then you kind of do have to make those distinctions, like when it comes to like medical things, because then that's when it becomes important. Like
Yeah.
you have to know like if you're predisposed to cancer or something.
But what
like,
about blood type then? So are people all my, like, people who I share blood type with, are they my family?
Well, I mean, I think anyone can be family. Doesn't necessarily.
But wait, how linked are genes to blood?
Oh, pretty linked.
I don't know. It's about. I guess she should be saying genes.
Well, maybe it's.
The ones you wash or the one in you?
Well, maybe that's the issue.
I wash my DNA every day.
I knew it. Okay, this was the request. So Hannah actually sent me half of this quote,
Oh, okay.
And I sent you the full quote
Nice.
along with another one.
Yeah.
And along with like a bunch of questions.
Yep. And then I gave you a big 3-paragraph almost answer.
No, actually it's 4 paragraphs.
Oh,
but-
okay. There we-
Okay, should we read the quote? You should
Uh,
read the first quote.
I read the first quote?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you sent part of it.
Okay. And this is from the English Patient. You have to protect yourself from sadness. Sadness is very close to hate. Let me tell you this. This is the thing I learned. If you take in someone else's poison, thinking you can cure them by sharing it, you will instead store it within you. Those men in the desert were smarter than you. They assumed he could be useful, so they saved him, but when he was no longer useful, they left him.
Okay, so when I read that, something in my brain was filing and archiving another quote that I felt was either indirect or like general conversation with that quote.
right.
And it's on Feelings by Jonathan, what's his, how do you say it?
Jonathan Safran Foer.
There you go.
There we go.
Quote, I spent my life learning to feel less. Every day I felt less. Is that growing old or is it something worse? You cannot protect yourself from sadness without protecting yourself from happiness. And then Marshy, you want to take that?
Whoa.
Well, you don't have to read it, but tell me what you thought, like, summarize that.
Summarize both of them?
Summarize what you think about, like,
Oh.
are they in conversation? Do you agree with any of them, or?
I feel like sadness can be spread with an intent that is, I guess,
So is sadness
especially if we don't address it.
a beverage best served cold? Is it a beverage that you can choose to take or not if it's someone else?
Yeah, but I also think it's not something that's asked for. Like, it feels like, in a way, it feels like when, in that quote, that it feels like you're taking in someone's poison as an attempt to almost, like, try to save them, try to be a martyr if the person, like,
Oh.
needs a cure. Because maybe the cure...
Let's remind people how we feel about martyrs.
Well, there's different ways.
Okay, how do we
Wait,
feel about-
you define martyr and then we'll...
A martyr is somebody who sacrifices themselves for somebody else, and they get a bad rep because people think they're doing also it for selfish
Yeah.
reasons. But in reality, they are doing something good out of it, so I think that should be recognized.
Okay, so she's positive.
Okay, if there was like a little kid trying to cross the street, right, and a car
Right.
was about to hit it, and somebody jumped in front and saved the little kid, would you say, okay, well, that's a martyr, right? Would
Yeah.
you like condemn them for being a martyr?
No, I would not. I would applaud them. And then for that week, I would applaud them. But if they keep bringing it up 50 times within like 20 days, that martyr is annoying.
Okay, but like sometimes it's necessary. Like Gandhi, I would say was kind of would have been a martyr if martyr. If he had
Martyrdom.
if he had died like when he did his hunger strike, but
Right.
it was he wanted people to know he was doing the hunger strike because he was trying to make a statement. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's necessary for a martyr to make a statement because they're doing it to solve a problem. And they want that attention. It's good attention.
She's DAing us before we can even speak.
But no, it's I don't have anything intentionally wrong with the martyrdom thing. The problem is, it comes,
Duh, duh, duh. No issue, but the problem.
the problem is that it comes with a price beforehand because it's already set in stone what it means, like the word itself. The intention is there to drive an opposition or kind of a driven stake of what's there already and what has to be done to kind of fix it. Because it feels like within that, there's already a big opposition around it. And that big opposition will always have, I guess it feels like, I guess I should get an example out, because that'd probably be better. But I was listening to one of Linkin Park's albums, and they repeated one of Martin Luther King's quotes about the Vietnam War, and then they repeated it again and again, and it got more robotic. And I felt like that's the issue with martyrdom itself, is that if it's kind of a stale switch you keep on repeating, it doesn't mean as much, and it gets an emotion of what martyrs kind of have one intention. That's it. And it feels like it leaves the rest in the dust after a while.
Okay, I have qualms with what you just said, because I just realized that for it to lose its effect, you're coming from a point of view where you assume the audience remains the same.
Right.
What if the audience changes and it's someone's first time hearing it, but it's the 900th time it's being said?
Right.
So is it still robotic? Would hearing it for the first time, if it's been repeated 9,000 times, would they hear the robotic tone, or would it be fresh to them?
That's what I'm saying. The import of it lies in the audience. So if it's not getting through, it's because it's on the receiving end. So you can't condemn the martyr. I guess you could.
Well, technically, I'm not condemning the martyr. I'm actually condemning the act of only creating a martyrdom out of somebody's actions.
Okay, so who does the creating then?
An outside source, obviously. I don't think Gandhi said, "I'm a martyr."
That's true, very true. Okay.
Granada.
Let's talk about Granada.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about Granada.
Okay, so
I think that's why I was explaining it that way.
I wrote this down, and I want you guys to agree or disagree with it. The belief that poets should not pollute his or her tongue with different languages. So let's not just poets, but like artists. Like, let's say to not pollute your aesthetic with different insert whatever. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree to a certain extent, not with the language thing, because I think that's just artistic shallowness or narrow vision, tunnel vision, which we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
But let's say you're trying to do a poem about let's write one of your poems or something, or I'm trying to write a poem, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna put in a little bit of Dada and then a little bit of something else, and then it turns into a mishmash that's just based on.
Is it a flim-flam mishmash?
Yeah, no, it's just like, I mean, it's gonna not be cohesive, which, if that's your intent, then I guess that's okay, but it seems more like you're not, you're indecisive in your creativity.
So you're looking for cohesion.
Or, yeah, I guess some cohesion is necessary.
But what if the import...
Then that's Dada.
Okay.
So it's been done.
Okay. What do you think?
Dada. Is it Dada or Dada? Dada.
I think it's Dada.
Dada.
Ta-da!
What's language, though? What is that? Is that language in the extent of...
You wrote that.
Huh?
Oh, just a side note.
Oh.
What is language?
Are you saying the language of, like, Spanish and English?
Anything. Insert said language.
Or is it about the language inside the language?
Oh, we're meta-languaged. Well, like, for example, like, if we're, like, to contextualize this quote, a Spanish poet should not pollute her tongue with German or something.
Oh, okay. I kind of don't have an answer right now, because I've never done it. I don't know if I have tunnel vision, but I don't think I've explored that option yet.
I think always to a certain extent we can't obviously know every language in the world.
Yeah.
So I guess it's unfair to say that it's tunnel vision, but I think being able to think in different languages spurs creativity.
Yeah. But I also think there's 7 billion people, so we'll find the expression somewhere.
Yeah.
Through some people, and maybe we won't find it through ourselves, but maybe that's the point. It's called entertainment.
So what I got out of the reading, or the poetry reading tonight, was when she said something about basking in your failures. Maybe because that's speaking directly to me, and that I wrote that a couple days ago. The exhilaration from purposelessness to shed or to rid yourself of something that you've been continuously.
Yeah.
So it's like a self-shedding process that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But you don't get to really say when it happens.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when you shed, you're just like the same thing that you were before.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Well, like when snakes shed, they.
I don't think.
Hey, who's downing now, Debbie?
No, think about it. Like when snakes shed, they're just the same thing. It's just like they're taking off their coat.
Just because you're a snake, I'm a dragon.
Okay, what were you asking with that one?
What was I asking? Like, okay, what I'm asking is, like, did I hear that more clearly when she said it? Because I personally connect with it. And, like, am I filtering stuff that's coming in? Like, that's like a bias filter. How often do we bias filter?
We can.
Every filter is biased, so that's redundant.
So the filter itself is biased.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it can be, but I guess we always would address with what we're attached to.
Yeah.
But then we also address what we're not attached to as well. What we could never understand, I guess.
What is the difference between something unblemished and something that has clarity?
Oh man, it's like virginity and not being a virgin. There we go. It's a key.
Is there a difference?
Something that's unblemished means that you're always aware that there's like a bad part of it that it hasn't been exposed to, or that hasn't like arisen out of it. And then clarity, I think it's just like something completely different. It's just like
So maybe clarity arises from chaos or some kind of like breakdown, whereas blemish is anticipating that chaos.
Okay, so clarity would be more optimistic, or like a forward movement, whereas unblemished like kind of predicts a backward movement.
So like a paralysis.
Yeah,
Alright.
but I think I have both right now. Because I've been writing my journaling I think you had mentioned, Jax, that too. That when I'm writing my journaling, it's kind of making clarity of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm still in that other territory as well, being lost middle of nowhere kind of thing. So I'm kind of experiencing both simultaneously.
So I've been speaking to a couple of friends about parents and non-parents, and it's really difficult for me to relate, or like, because I've never had two parents. And then I think about how people attach parent in marriages, and how at some point it becomes like a routine. At any point, everything becomes a routine, right?
Yeah.
But, so here's something that I was thinking. To be bound by a necessity we never dreamed to question. What does that mean to you?
It means that the authority, the parent, the kind of necessities that we don't make ourselves are more important to us than what we dream in ways. Even though the more personal dreaming is a lot more about us.
So you're saying necessity is external, whereas dreams are internal.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing that bounds us sometimes, because we only think one thing is inside. It's not necessarily that dreams only have to be inside. And I think when we create this necessity that's all outside, all bound with money or the authority figure of the parent, then it kind of demystifies us to say things like, well, my mama said, where after the marriage and stuff, she's like, oh, you know, I was told all the time that if I wait for the right man, he'll come along, and it didn't happen. But the thing was, it wasn't about that. She's happy with the kids that she has with me and my brother, and at the same time...
Wait, that sounded like she had kids with you and your brother.
No. Oh, sorry. I mean, she's happy with the kids she has.
Okay.
Through
the marriage.
Okay,
thank you.
Sorry. I thought I said it the right way,
okay.
But I just,
I was listening.
Yeah. But I think, like, through that alone, that's one of the things I've noticed, that if you base everything off necessity only, then you'll never understand what you truly want, then you'll always look for only necessity, like just protection, security, escape.
Okay.
And then you'll always have that that other need that won't be awakened, I guess, or known.
So is there a way to acknowledge necessity while being able to do what you want?
Yeah. It's a very difficult thing, but it can be done.
So is that what we're talking about, logistics and rationality?
What do you mean?
Like sometimes logistics hinder or slow down certain things.
Okay, well, what you initially said was to be bound by a necessity that we never think to question.
Yeah.
Well, I think the necessity is there's an absence so you're not able to question it because there was never a presence there that enables you to question it. So I guess it is based on, because absence is all based on logistics. Yeah. But
If absence is based on logistics, then what are presence is based off of?
absences. Is a presence reliant on an absence? No.
I think the absence relies on the presence.
The absence relies on the presence. And time? Or no? But what if there was never a presence? Then how could there be an absence?
That's true. I could understand that. I think that goes back to what we create sometimes, or what's been created before it's come.
Okay. So if we make the assumption that there
But
should
like for example, if you've never had toilet paper and you've never used anything to, I guess, fulfill that need, but you instinctually feel like you need to wipe your ass with something. So just because the present was never there, couldn't you feel the absence?
But you wouldn't know what you needed unless you had been exposed to toilet paper before.
Well, then if that's the case, then how do inventions come about? Like light. Like a light bulb.
Well, through reference. So, like, you're aware, like, during the day that there's light, so you're able to do this. So then somebody says, hey, at night we need something to help us do this.
So what you're basically saying that you'll never know what you want unless you're, like, flashed with it. And then you're like, oh.
Close that trench coat.
I want to be naked. But is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I'm saying, I guess, so then there's never really any true creativity because there always needs to be, it's like in small steps that you're able to.
Because everything either is a mimic or...
So if you never met me, you would never want to know that you want to meet me. But then if you met me and then I went away, you would know that you want to meet me?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question. Yeah.
But that's in the line or the frame of thought of what we're talking about toilet paper.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
It technically is, because it's like the same with like if I was, what was it? My brother was saying that, me having had my first kiss with Christina and stuff, how would I have felt? You would have given yourself a high five if you would have been proud of yourself like 10 years ago. If a 10-year-old version of you came up and saw you, they'd be like, yeah. Because so little is needed. But it doesn't... I think because it matters what we create through what we have, too. So, I don't need too much, but I want it all. That's... Maybe I didn't get on the subject there good enough, but it's all right.
It's all right.
That's what I usually do, because there's so much packed in my head.
Okay.
You should hear my earlier one. I talked about my brother and everything. Because, what was it? How I dealt with Christina and Catherine, he didn't like. And he was trying to give me better ideas how to deal with it. But at the end of the day, I had to deal with it my own way. And I saw how I had to. I saw that I had to take every step that I had to take to keep it going, to to keep something that I wanted until the end came, where I knew, okay, that's the end. That's how I know.
Are mistakes obvious because we have, like, hindsight? Or are the mistakes obvious in the process of making it? Or does it depend on the mistake?
I think it depends on the mistake. Like if you drop milk and you see it falling, like you see, that's a mistake. But like if it's like
I don't think dropping milk is a mistake.
Is that a mistake or is it just like would it be?
It's an oopsie.
It's an oopsie.
Is there a difference between a mistake and an error?
Oh, let's define.
Well, I think a mistake doesn't necessarily mean that you've wronged anybody, like, or wronged even yourself, because a mistake can be like, how would I say it?
I agree.
Yeah.
Because I feel like an error requires a canvas or a template, whereas a mistake can just be made.
Yeah.
There's no reference.
There's nothing else.
It's just a mistake on the canvas of life.
So,
it's like
are mistakes blemishes?
Oh, here we go again.
only if you anticipate on making it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't make a mistake, are you unblemished?
If you don't make a mistake, are you unblemished? Well, you should be making mistakes. So then you can make better mistakes.
Well, see, are you just looking to make more? See, maybe then it's not.
So if you're making a lot of mistakes, you're actually looking for clarity.
I think
And
that's
while
true.
seeking for clarity, you're making a mess. Spilling milk all over. Oopsie.
Well, maybe that's. I don't know. Maybe that's the. What was it? It's like what was it? I don't know why this came to mind, but I was thinking of the Desert of the Real, about what's the. I forgot the philosopher's name, but it's where there's a world. There's this at the beginning of one of his books. It was in the Matrix movie too. I forgot what it was called, but it was actually the book that he opened that had all the stuff he was selling in it at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
But it said at the beginning of it that there's this world map, and everybody's hanging off vestiges on the end of it. Like everything's clear on top. There's clarity everywhere. The map is all done, but everyone is just hanging on the vestiges of it on the sides. And that's what like humans are doing right now. We're in a desert of the real, so to speak, where we're just hanging on to the vestiges, just clinging on to the last things. So that's what that philosopher
Why
said.
do we need a map?
Why do we need a map? I don't know, so we can't find things, so we can't follow it.
Oh, okay, so
I know I brought up something
do
very
you
random.
like to stumble upon greatness, or do you like to navigate towards greatness?
That's an interesting question right there.
You can answer while he's thinking.
I said that I want to navigate towards greatness and then stumble on it along the way and enjoy the surprise of finding it along the way. Because if I know what it is, like at the end, then that wouldn't be greatness. So I guess the greatness is in the surprise for me.
I can see what you mean.
So is surprise another way of contrast for you?
Surprise. Yeah, I guess you need contrast for surprise. You need contrast for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I said for myself, I like to navigate my greatness or navigate towards it. But in other people, I like to stumble upon their greatness. I feel like it feels kind of terrible to navigate towards someone's greatness.
So what? Okay, so you mean what do you do when you stumble upon their greatness?
I guess it's a surprise greatness externally.
Okay, so you're saying like if you're reading if you pick up a book and you don't expect it to be good,
Right.
and then it ends up being really,
Right.
really great.
Instead of picking up a book and looking for that great moment.
Okay, so then if you pick up a book and you're expecting it to be really great, are you usually underwhelmed?
I'm underwhelmed by a lot of things.
I wonder.
Are you underwhelmed by this conversation?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just yawning because.
I'm sleepy and hungry.
Yeah, that. But I'm just, I've just been working and writing so much. I think that's what's happening to me. I'm kind of. Maybe I'm overusing my energy.
Okay. How are you gonna replenish yourself?
By eating and sleeping and writing again. Doing it all over again.
Maybe that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When I'm telling you the highlight of my day is that one good nap after printer chaos and then good food today. I'm replenishing myself.
Did you know that one person dies of hunger every 3.5 seconds?
Well, and it says here, all I want is to be a happy man. What does that have to do with one?
That's the name of the person.
Oh.
It's on every sticker, and other stickers like about rape or
That's
like.
his name?
No, not his name, but like.
Mr. All I Want is.
Like all he wants to be is a happy man, but then all these stuff is happening.
Oh, I see.
And he wants people to be aware of it.
Yeah. It's like another guy that I see.
Hey, I got this sticker at Gypsy Den.
Nice. Okay. Gypsy Den?
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, it's a den for gypsies.
Okay. Alright, so you're a gypsy or?
I was.
Oh, okay.
I retired.
You retired.
It was a profession. I no longer could keep up.
So there we go. That makes sense. Sounds good. But I don't know exactly where else to go now. What do you think? Should we say anything more, or are we puffed out?
Yeah, I think we puffed out when you yawned.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The yawning process.
Are yawns contagious?
They are if your brain's overheated.
Is that what it is? We've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
So it's your brain is overheated?
Yeah, so let's say if your brain's overheated, but it's not to the yawning point yet, but once I yawn, your brain's like, oh yeah, let's...
Sounds very pumped up.
Doesn't sound very overheated.
I'm like, oh yeah, oh, let's yawn.
Okay, well then I guess that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's all for this week's. And that's where I end. Okay.